Rockets and Knicks were in Game 5 when O.J. started that fateful drive. His four-way hazard lights were blinking, and no one knew what the juice was thinking.
I've been to Reno, Chicago, Fargo, Minnesota, Buffalo, Toronto, Winslow, Sarasota, Wichita, Tulsa, Ottawa, Oklahoma, Tampa, Panama, Mattawa, La Paloma, Bangor, Baltimore, Salvador, Amarillo, Tocopilla, Barranquilla, and Padilla. I'm a killed. I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert bare, man. I breathe the mountain air, man. Of travel I've had my share, man. I've been everywhere.
This is Oversight Live, your advocate for good governance. We're putting the site back in. Oversight. Here's the watcher on the wall, your host, Ben Carpenter.
Hey, welcome to Oversight Live. I am Ben Carpenter, your host for this evening. Thank you for joining us. Good to see you all. I guess I can't see you all. It's good to be with you. It's good to be seen. How's that? What is Oversight Live? Well, I created Oversight Live about 60 days ago. Our Alaska State Legislature and our state capital are down in Juneau, and Juneau's only accessible by plane and by ferry, and it's prohibitively expensive for most Alaskans, both in time and money, to get down to Juneau and provide oversight of their capital, of their elected officials. So that's why we exist, because we've got technology and we can bring our meetings that occur down in Juneau into our homes and understand and know what's going on down in Juneau. Not having a road is an excuse, but it's not a great excuse now that we've got this wonderful technology at our fingertips. But much of what goes on down there is kind of like a second language, sometimes a foreign language. You can watch the videos on KTOO and just see the raw information, and that's what I'm going to be showing you with a little bit of pulling the pertinent stuff out for you. But you don't have any way to ask questions while you're watching it. So that's the beauty here. In your social media app, we're broadcasting on X, Facebook, and YouTube. And if you have questions, just chat right into your social media app there, and it'll come to me, and I'll do my best to answer your questions. If you're watching the recording and you have a question, then email me, producer@oversightlive.com, and I will do my best to answer those questions for you as well. Don't be surprised if I use your question on air. There's no such thing as a dumb question. And if you've got a question, then that means somebody else likely has it as well. So we'll use the opportunity to edify everyone. Look, I know that some of this can get boring, and it's self-government, and who wants to do that when you can do a whole lot of other fun things? Well, I think it's becoming more clear to more people that we've got to increase the pool of people who are participating in our self-government, because we look around and we ask the question, what the heck is going on? Like, there are a lot of things out there that just don't make any sense. Like, people are making decisions that don't make sense. But where do you start, right? Okay, well, here's one place we can start, by learning. And tonight we're gonna do that. We're gonna try to have some fun. As much as we can, we're gonna try to have some fun.
And we're going to have a lot of fun tonight.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. All right, I want to get started, and I'm going to tee this up here. We have been talking for the last couple meetings about what's going on in our Senate Resources Committee, and we're going to dive right into that again. I've got a couple clips that I want to show you, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to be able to keep my cool tonight. I pushed out on Facebook earlier today, that people really needed to join in and see this see what's going to be presented tonight, because I've been making an argument that we've got people that don't want to see the pipeline, the natural gas pipeline, be built. And I think if it doesn't get built, and whatever the legislature does here, it might be part of the problem, or it might be a problem, but it's not the larger problem. What we're going to see tonight demonstrates to me what the larger problem is, that Alaskans who are aware of the private sector, who care about economic activity and business and prosperity, they want to see a better future for their family and their kids and their grandkids that doesn't have something to do with handouts from government. If that's you, if I'm speaking to you, then tonight's for you, because you've got to see this. You have to understand what's happening down in Juneau. Okay. It's phenomenal. Like I have been saying for a long time, the legislature does not care about the private economy. It doesn't care. From a budgetary point of view, it does not care. It doesn't matter to the decision makers outside of your oil industry. Outside of that, outside of a little bit of corporate income tax, the small other in our budgets are they're mining, fishing, tourism. All of that's a small other. It's not de minimis. There's a significant amount of money that comes, but it's nothing compared to the billions of dollars that are being generated by permanent fund earnings, federal dollars, and oil. Although oil is the number three largest source of revenue. So our private economy in Alaska is number 3. All combined, it doesn't include how much we're making, what the state has to spend from permanent fund earnings and federal dollars. And that's the future. That's the future right now. With a gas pipeline, we could turn that around. We could say, hey, our private economy could put more into our state coffers. It could raise all, rising tide floats all boats. But what we're going to hear tonight is the problem is not the pipeline. The problem is the people sitting in the chairs. So let's get going on this. And a good evening to all you who have logged in and chatted. All right. So we're going to go to Senate Resources. Let me make this big so you can see it.
Under this proposal, we often talk about how the gas line is going to bring enormous revenue to the state. And particularly, I think, at least when we sit in the legislature, we think, is this going to be a big increase in revenue to state government? And I'm looking at slide 32. Never in a single year do the revenues to the state exceed $1 billion. And I'm not minimizing that $1 billion is no small amount of money to the state, but I think about how much we're drawing annually on the POMV draw from the earnings reserve to fund state government, which is over $3 billion and has been for the last few years. And so I look at this, which shows less than $1 billion coming to the state in the best years. If this project has potential revenue to the state, is there some other means the state can achieve great revenue from this particular project? Because it doesn't look like it's coming from royalties and production taxes. I mean, and again, not to understate that we don't need the revenue, but this doesn't look like a game changer. And so where's the big revenue to the state in the project?
Okay, hold that thought. Okay, I'm not going to respond just yet. Senator Clayman has got another clip here. And that was Senator Clayman, a Democrat from Anchorage.
Senator Clayman through the chair. So I would suggest that $800 million a year is a significant increase to state revenue. Looking at gas also.
And I agree it's a significant increase, but it doesn't really change the picture dramatically, because that's 800 million is about 25% of the POMV draw from the earnings reserve.
Mr. Stickle?
Sure, Senator Clayman, I was going to add, gas is a lower value commodity than oil. That is a truth, and so when you're looking at a gas, there is a lesser amount of profit overall with gas than oil, and that's something to keep in mind.
And I think that's a really important point that we often forget because we are used to dealing with oil. I'll just interject that. But the other point you make, Senator Clayman, because you're referring to the percent of market value that is available for general fund use. And we are proposing actually reducing the percent of market value percent from 5% down to 4.5 progressively over a 5-year period.
Right. Yeah.
Which if you apply that to this graph, it will hit at about 2032, 2033. I don't have the bill in front of me that's being considered, but we need to take that into consideration also, though this is not our only source of revenue.
Sure.
Thank you for bringing that up, Senator Clayman.
Follow
Did
up.
you have follow-up?
I do have follow-up. And it isn't, the question I'm raising is, if there is this potentially more significant win for the state than just what's on these graphs, where is that? Is that somehow that we have ownership interest or greater ownership interest in pieces of the pipeline that will bring us revenue separate from royalties and production taxes?
Senator Clayman through the chair, so that's certainly an option that the legislature could consider to have an ownership interest. Broader economic impacts, economic development in the state. And then what we haven't really looked at is the impact on exploration and development above and beyond what's in the revenue forecast. And I spoke to that a little bit yesterday in some of the slides, but this idea that when you have a sales mechanism for gas, that it makes exploration and development more attractive generally on the slope.
Further questions, Senator Wilkowski?
Do you have any idea what the costs are to the upstream owners to produce $1.50 worth of gas are? Because right now, my understanding is they're injecting like 8 billion cubic feet a day, so they're just re-injecting it. So I would imagine the costs to the producers are pennies, extremely low. Is that probably about right?
Senator Wilkowski through the chair, we do have assumptions around what the incremental cost of the oil, of the gas and associated new oil will be. Those are baked into the model. I don't have those at my fingertips. But we do have assumptions that we've developed with AGDC.
Follow-up, Senator Wilkowski.
So profits for industry, I guess. So if you have $1.50 gas, which is what you're estimating, the state's share is $1.50 times, we get a 12.5% royalty, we get a 13% gross tax, so that's 25.5%. That comes out to 38.25 cents. Corporate income tax is a little bit, well, not as much as probably could be, but the property taxes are very little. So it's maybe 40 cents, I'm guessing. The producers, on the other hand, are getting, if it costs virtually nothing for them. They're just producing it and re-injecting it right now. So they're probably making $1 an MCF. Is that sound about right?
Senator Wilkowski through the chair, I would have to look at our assumptions to validate that exact number.
Yes, Senator Wilkowski.
Could you provide us with that data?
Yeah, sure. Senator Wilkowski through the chair will be happy to do that. So we do, as I mentioned, we do have assumptions baked into the modeling for incremental costs at Prudhoe Bay and Point Thompson to produce the gas.
Good. I think the other thing to consider here is what I shared at the outset. The idea that Pantheon is going to be the initial source of gas is a questionable assumption. since they haven't applied for gas offtake yet. And so not thinking that there doesn't have to be gas treatment costs at the very beginning is a flawed assumption, in my opinion. But I want to go to Senator Rauscher, who has recently joined us, and welcome. And I'll let you ask your questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In just regards to the question by Senator Wilkowski, when they re-inject or inject, they have different reasons for it, to bring up more oil. Sometimes they have too much gas that comes up because of the oil that they're taking out of the ground. This is not a complete search for gas. This is something that happened along the way, which may be too much for them to re-inject just to bring up new oil or whatever. But when you're looking at actually providing the gas that we're providing here and liquefying and getting it in the pipeline, I think that the costs go up considerably, other than why they're re-injecting what you're talking about there, and the cost that it seems like it would be almost nil. These are two different types of gas supplies that we're trying to come up with, and volume that we're needing. That's just my opinion from working up there.
Senator Myers.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So go back to Senator Clayman's question about the benefit to the state. We're talking about dollar benefit in terms of direct royalties and taxes. But I mean, the other benefit to the state would be lower energy costs for residents. Hopefully fewer people leave the state because it gets more affordable to live here. Maybe some businesses become more profitable. We start some businesses. You mentioned Agrium potentially restarting up if they've got a decent, a reliable supply. Again, that something gets thrown on the property tax rolls for the Kenai. If other businesses can get started, those increase the property tax rolls locally for a lot of places. Do you have a Department of Revenue? Do you have any modeling that can estimate those types of benefits, even though they aren't necessarily direct benefits to the state treasury because, well, we don't have a broad-based tax? Can you model some of those other benefits to municipalities or to the population in general?
Senator Myers, through the chair, that's something we've been looking at, how we can model those broader economic benefits. I'm not sure that's quite ready for prime time, but qualitatively, we can certainly speak to some of what we're looking at. It's things like data centers, like a restart of Agrium plant, like a line out to support mining operations like the Donlin mine, like the Fairbanks spur line. And certainly those have economic impacts that go beyond just the direct revenues.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Myers, I appreciate what you spoke about in terms of opening and restarting businesses, and that resulting, of course, in property tax and so forth. But remember, in under 4356.022, all municipal property tax, ad valorem sales tax, municipal gross and net income, license fees, excise, municipal charges, etc., relating to consumption, whatever, are all prohibited prohibited during construction, which is the most impactful time. And you see the line there. It actually, the line starts way over in 2022. We're actually in 2026 already. But that prohibition on any municipal taxes of any kind continues until they reach 1 billion cubic feet, which this optimistically is projecting in 2033. But that's a pretty optimistic projection. So it could be a while before that idea of additional municipal income would come to fruition. Just some practical considerations.
Well, just to that
Senator
point,
Myers.
just that point, Madam Chair. So I understand we may need to clarify that, because I think the point of the bill here is to say we don't want to tax them while they're in the middle of construction, and but again, there will be some spillover effects, and we do want the municipalities and the like to be able to capture those. So I'm all in favor of clarifying that, but to say I don't think it's quite accurate to say because that's what the language is in the bill right now, that for example, the Kenai wouldn't be able to tax the Agrium plant just because they're using the gas, because that doesn't have anything to do with the construction. So I'm just, again, I understand we may need to clarify that, but just thinking about where the benefits go.
Okay, it's hard to make an argument on the fly when somebody has presented an argument to you in real time, right? So we've all been there, and we're all like, "Hey, yeah, man, I should have said that during that argument, right, or during that conversation. I think of something wise afterwards." Well, that's kind of the beauty of having a show like this, is we have time to reflect and look at what is actually happening and discern what the truth and the smartest thing is, right? That's kind of a challenge for legislators and anybody sitting in front of sitting in a committee or in a decision-making body where they're having to think in real time, right? Okay. That being said, the problem that we have in this state is we have the wrong people sitting in those chairs, with the exception of two, and it's not the levers with regard to the pipeline. Taxes, basically anybody can figure that out. The problem with the state is the people sitting in those chairs. Okay. And what you just heard from Senator Clayman and the chair, and from Senator Wielkowski, what you just heard is a focus on this pipeline's impact to state government. You didn't hear anything from those three individuals on what this project would mean to you and I. I've got kids who are just starting out in life, and I hear the conversations that happen. They're working hard. They're all doing the right thing. I hear other conversations from other young people who are like, there's not enough housing out here. We cannot find housing for ourselves. If you want to buy a 2 or 3 bedroom home, it doesn't exist. Like it's hard to find that. You want to rent it? That's hard to do too. How am I going to put food on the table when the cost of my electric bill and my gas bill keep going up? And by the way, international pressures now are at the fuel pump for my automobile. Eventually, those international pressures with regard to the price of oil are going to make the price of food and transportation and everything go up, right? So there's this disconnect between the people sitting in those chairs, right? They're completely out of touch with reality. Okay. I'm guessing that most of those people have got a steady paycheck. They don't have to worry about their bills. Their bills just get taken care of. There's never a point where they're like, oh, you know what? I'm not sure that I have enough money to pay my electric bill or my gas bill this month. I really seriously question where I'm going to get my food, because I'm either going to have to make a decision here. Do I pay my electric bill, or do I go buy food for my kids? Those are real decisions that are being made out here. And I am sitting here as a fiscal conservative. I happen to be a Republican. Those are Democrats sitting on that table, and they are greedy sons of guns. Because the only thing that they care about is the money that can come off of this pipeline for government and government services. That's the only thing that they care about. The benefit, Senator Clayman, who wants to be governor, the only benefit that he can come up and think of, he's asking a legitimate question of the administration. He's saying, what other benefit are we going to have? I mean, we're thinking we were going to get billions of dollars in big money from this pipeline. Well, where's it going to be? That's all that they're thinking about. And I've been trying to communicate to people that this is the problem that you have in your legislature. We keep sending people down there to give us things out of government, and that is what they're doing. You're not going to have things that happen in the public sector, in the government, that are going to empower or enable private sector growth, because they don't care. It doesn't matter to what they do on a daily basis down in Juneau for 5 months out of the year. Unless you're paying corporate income tax, unless you're paying royalties, unless you're paying a production tax, unless you're doing one of those things, unless you're a permanent fund investing person who's bringing permanent fund earnings back to the state, it is irrelevant to what they have to do. You are just a You're just a demand that has to be satisfied. And they're going to satisfy you as best they can with their money, with government money. No one at that table other than Senator Myers is bringing up a conversation about the value of the pipeline to you and I, not the government. Pause the conversation on the government for a minute. What is the value of the pipeline? We have this constitutional provision that says that the natural resources need to be managed for the maximum benefit of all the people, of all of Alaskans, right? In their mind, that means taxation. How are you going to benefit? Maximum benefit to Alaskans is I'm going to have a good job because the cost of gas has gone down. The cost of electricity coming from the cost of gas comes down. The person that employs me, or if I'm a business owner, my inputs, my costs of doing business are coming down because there's a pipeline getting built. I care less about how much taxation is being generated at the state level. You're going to find it from somewhere. If you're not getting it from the pipeline, you're going to tax me some other way or take a dividend. Government's going to find its money somehow. But am I going to have a pipeline that reduces the cost of my inputs of business? Am I going to have a pipeline that reduces the cost of my expenses in my household? Senator Clayman can't come up with that because he's out of touch. These are the wrong people. These are the wrong people sitting here having the conversation about second guessing and rehashing a pipeline project that a private company owns 75% of. These people can't add value to a pipeline project, period. Full stop, end of sentence. None of them have the credibility or the experience to be asking the questions that they're asking. The motivation behind them is either greed, we want more money for state government, or it's we're trying to kill the project and we're making it as hard as possible for this project to go forward. None of what they're talking about is outlining the benefits of the project, which is you and I. I'm sorry, folks. If the pipeline does not get built, this moment right here, moment in time, this period of time where Senator Giesel is delaying, she's posturing and making it look like she's doing something, it's not productive. It's not focused on the value of the pipeline. It is acting on ulterior motives. You have to identify those ulterior motives. Watch the meetings. Go sit in the meetings if you want to fly to Juneau, or sit on your couch and watch the YouTube meetings and discern, because here's the thing. We are literally in a window of opportunity for the state to do the right thing and help this pipeline project go forward. Or they do the wrong thing and maybe the pipeline doesn't happen. Let's listen to another section of this meeting.
Thank you, Senator Wielkowski. And obviously, there are.
This is Nicholas Fulford with Gaffney Klein. We heard from him last night on Oversight Live.
A whole range of policy implications, involved in a decision by the legislature. But as I said at the start of the presentation, I think it might be helpful to look at SB 280, for example, in two different ways. One is a structural change in the property tax mechanism, which aligns the mechanism much better with what would be needed for a true economic basis of the project. The second is the question of the tax rate. The first, I would say, is an imperative for the legislature to resolve, because the lack of a resolution on that is, I suspect, potentially holding up the dialogue with interested stakeholders. The second one, the setting of the rate, is a more complex question. And, you know, if you look at other jurisdictions, were you to set a rate now, you may wish to revisit it at the point where FID is approaching.
So what you're literally hearing is the consultant, and they can go back, as we learned last night, Gaffney Klein is owned by one of the companies that is doing business with Glenfarne with regard to this Baker Hughes with the project, right? Gaffney Klein, this representative, is saying, if you don't adjust this tax situation, if you don't adjust the property tax, then you're probably holding up the project. Okay? That's what their advice is saying. And they can always now come back and say, well, you're biased because you're the company you work for is owned by a company that wants to see the pipeline go forward. I imagine those words are coming at some point in time. Let's jump forward here to hear something else from, let me see if I can find it real quick. This is making sausage in the, okay, we're almost there. Let's pick it up here.
In 2017, Tanzania introduced a bill which really provided such a high degree of control over the project, using the sort of constitutional obligation as the sort of rationale, that it made it then very difficult for international energy companies and so forth to operate without that concern that the government were about to, potentially change many features. So in effect, what happened is that the capital flowed towards Mozambique, which had equally a pretty demanding framework for the project, for taxes and so forth. But in the context of, as I say, Alaska and BC, it was a really good textbook example of how capital can flow between two countries, depending on the perception of risk and control.
Okay, so in layman's language, he's pointing out that there was a project in Tanzania. The Tanzanian government put restrictions in place, a restrictive environment, and they took their money. The project took their money to Mozambique. Well, there's not another pipeline project that is going on in Alaska, so we're not, or in Canada. So this isn't the same apples to apples. We're not at risk of losing Glenfarne to some other project that they're working on, or some other country that's trying to woo them, right? That's probably what Mozambique was doing. Or maybe not. I don't know. I'm reading some into this. The point, the salient point here is that it is real world that if this legislature dicks this up, Glenfarne may say no to an FID and the pipeline project comes to a screeching halt. For a number of reasons, some of which might be they can't get investors to put money forward for this large project, right? Because the risk just went up. The legislature is communicating to the world that they want to increase risk, not decrease risk. And the people that are responsible for this are sitting at that table right now. It doesn't even have to go much further. They can drag this out in committee and it never move forward out of committee They can send it to the next committee of referral and it just drag on. They just don't allow enough time. They study it to death. And you've got to ask the question, and I'm sorry I'm getting upset about this and I'm raising my voice. If you want to see a pipeline, you're going to have to get off your duff and get your neighbors to get a hold of these people. They are holding all the cards right now. And you cannot trust Senator Giesel or Senator Wielkowski or Senator Clayman. The two on either side of her belong to a party, a political party that has already said we want to eliminate oil and gas development in the state of Alaska. You've got a competing project to the pipeline right now, and that is the importation of LNG. And you've got forces within the state of Alaska that would rather see that project happen than this pipeline project happen. Those happen to be constituents of these people. And I'm talking about Chugach Electric. Their leftist board of directors that has bought into this man-made global warming nonsense and is wanting to transition our electrical grid to windmills and solar panels is applying pressure here to keep LNG prices high through the importation of natural gas, LNG, liquid natural gas. If they want to see a transition to other electric sources like renewables, if they want to see that happen, those are not feasible without government subsidy and higher prices. So you need, if you're on their side, you need to keep the price of gas, natural gas, high. That's what helps you get your project and make it feasible. It increases the likelihood that people are going to say, "Oh yeah, that's a good deal." But with the price of gas right now, and that we have to import LNG. Yeah, let's go with this other alternative. Got federal subsidies rolling in after Trump's done. You get a pipeline that's going to be there for 50 plus years. You can't turn that off. You can't turn it off. Why would the greenies want the pipeline? They wouldn't be able to turn it off and transition away from it. You got an LNG import? That's easy to turn off. You just tell the ships to stop coming. It'll dry up. You can turn that off in a heartbeat. If Alaskans want to see this pipeline built, they need to pause their life right now and get a hold of Senator Giesel and tell her to do a 180. Figure out a way to get this pipeline passed. She's doing the exact opposite. She's trying to figure out a way to kill the project and lean on the constitutional responsibility to maximize the benefit of the natural resources for Alaskans through increased taxation. You can hear it in Clayman's voices. You can hear it in Wielkowski's voices. You can hear it in her voice. They are lining up the dominoes to say this is what we have to do. We don't have a choice. We're constitutionally, it's requiring us. The Constitution is requiring us to maximize the taxation of this project. No one on that committee is going to have a conversation about the alternative. You want to keep taxes where they're at? You want to maximize tax revenue? The project doesn't get built. Then you get zero. From their perspective, they're going to be able to say, well, you know what? That's just greedy Glenfarne. That's the argument on the other side of that decision. Glenfarne was just greedy. They didn't want to give up their profit. And we didn't want to be taken advantage of, and they wouldn't share their books, and blah, 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 blah. Excuses start flying. Glenfarne goes away. The pipeline doesn't happen. We continue to import LNG. I'm livid. I am I've been saying the same thing here in different ways for several days now, maybe several weeks. I've been trying to figure out what is going on here. Watching a meeting like this from yesterday, and I haven't previewed the meeting from today. Very clear to me, should be clear to all Alaskans, that the priority of that group of people is to maximize taxation on this project, and that is a project killer. Our consultant is telling us that in words that he's got to be able to use. It would be nice for him to come right out and say it, but he's not going to. It's like a double whammy, because he's going to say something that they don't want to hear, and then they can smack him down and say, well, yeah, of course you're going to say that because you're bought and paid for by Glenfarne. It's their consultant. They hired him. Those people are treating this project, if you give them the benefit of the doubt, they're treating the project like the alternative, a high tax alternative, exists. The high tax alternative is what we had for a decade. It's what the current status is. It's the current law. This concept of strong state ownership and strong state management of a project, that's what they want to get to. And here we are as Alaskans going about our daily lives, assuming that somebody somewhere is doing the right thing, that if all the stars will align, we'll get this pipeline built. A lot of naysayers out there saying, oh, the stars will never align. There is a lot of difference between those people saying, it's my belief that the stars are never going to align, which I can sympathize with that. But it's a completely different conversation than these people at this table sitting here rearranging the stars. They're like, what stars can we move out of the way so that this project doesn't happen? Again, the only thing we have to go on that these people want this project is the simple phrase that comes out of their mouth. We heard it from Wilikowski last night. Well, I want this project just like everyone else. Okay. Well, did you put your money where your mouth is? Did you put your action where your mouth is? Are your actions speaking louder than your words? Because the first attempt that you had at supporting this project in HJR 18, you stripped all reference of this project out of that resolution, and in favor of just a generic, oh yeah, we support a project. Doesn't have to be this one. It can be any project. So you're speaking with a forked tongue. You're saying we want this project, but we really need to have maximum taxation here. I mean, you heard the contempt dripping out of Wilikowski's mouth when he says, oh, we've got corporate income tax. Well, we could have more corporate income tax. We should have more, right? Governor candidate Clayman, Senator Clayman, this is $1 billion of revenue. That's the most that we're ever going to make in a year. So, $1 billion is not a big deal, but I mean, it is a big deal. But if that's all we're going to make in a year, then how do we make more? Good question. How do you make more? There's Senator Clayman. You make more by empowering a pipeline to get built, which in turn boosts our economy, the private economy, not the government economy. You know what happens? You know what happens when the price of gas goes up in a government building? Government buildings use gas. They have to heat the buildings. You know what happens when the price of gas goes up and the bill for heating that building goes up? The budget goes up and then it gets paid. More of your dividend gets taken, a tax gets levied somewhere, it gets paid. There's never a question. There's no doubt in anybody's mind that the gas bill in the government building is going to get paid. The government doesn't care where the gas comes from. They don't care what cost it is. This guy's saying, how do we get more money for the state? Well, that would be a good question. And if you were thinking in terms of caring for the rest of Alaskans instead of just caring for government and government workers and the people who benefit from government budgets, then you would recognize that lower cost gas and consistent supplies of gas lead to economic activity. And now you have more jobs and you have higher paying jobs. And it's a situation of economic activity increasing the standard of living and prosperity in your state. And if you were to tap into that as a state, as your economy grows, then you have more revenue to the state. And this is why I've been arguing that you put in a sales tax that taps into that economic activity. Then this dude right here, the dots are going to connect. He's like, oh yeah, if we build a pipeline and the pipeline leads to more business and more business leads to a more sales tax, then the state government benefits. Okay, I'm on board. That connection doesn't exist right now. It is a disconnect in our state level. And what we've got is legislators without the vision. They're the wrong people. They don't understand. They're the wrong vision. We have a little window of opportunity where if Alaskans want to see this pipeline get built, they want to see a legislature do what's possible to help the project go forward. Nothing of what they're talking about right now is helping the project go forward. Nothing. Zero. There is no conversation. They are not even attempting to have the conversation about that. Their whole conversation is, what can we get for the state? We need more money. You and your neighbors have got to pause your conversations today. You've got to pause your life. You've got to get involved and get a hold of those people and tell them to cease and desist this attitude. Figure out a way to get this pipeline built. If you won't do it for you, do it for your kids and your grandkids, because they're the ones that are going to benefit from this as well. Maybe you're set up. But when your grandkids, when they come of age and the economy hasn't grown, if they're able to find a way to stay in Alaska, in the private sector, going to be tough. They're probably going to go for a government job because that'll be where the high paying jobs are. I don't even know where to go here. I'm livid at what I see here. This is if my fellow Alaskans who are watching this don't understand what is happening there, then I don't even know why we have elections. You've got to be able to see that those people sitting at that table have no interest in you or you being prosperous. They are 100% content to focus on government money, growing money for the state government. There's nothing that forces them to think about making decisions that would benefit you other than, hey, we've got services. You're on tough times. Why don't you come on down here? We'll give you some food stamps. We'll give you a great program. There's a lot of people hurting for housing. Let's let's give some subsidies for people to have low cost rent. Let's get the government to build some homes for people. The incentives that are in place in our state government right now are telling these people to look to the federal government and look to the permanent fund to fund the government. They are not looking to the private sector. They are not looking to our economy. They're not looking. This is an example. You've got a pipeline, and all they can see is state dollars. They cannot see the benefit a pipeline would bring to a private economy, to you and I. They don't see it. Senator Clayman is literally asking the question of the bureaucrat of the state's Department of Revenue's lead economist, chief economist. Well, if we're only going to get $1 billion a year, how do we make that? Like, how do we get more? Is that all that we're going to benefit from? I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to say. Like, I'm gonna turn over to the questions or comments that you all have. Maybe I'll give my brain some time to think of something brilliant. But I'm about out of it tonight. I listened to this and I am so disappointed. I'm so disappointed in these people. They're living a completely different life than most Alaskans. Completely out of touch. Scrolling back up to the top here, we'll come on down the list here. Yeah, Rick says, I can actually hear them dragging their feet. It sure seems like it, doesn't it? I mean, Senator Giesel telegraphed at the press conference last week, we're gonna have 3 or 4 weeks of meetings on this in my committee. We're gonna be working every day for this. Really? That's how long it's going to take for you to come to a conclusion that you need to help do whatever's necessary for the pipeline? Sounds like you're dragging your feet to me. Lisa says they need to just stop the dog and pony show. They can't because they don't want to get blamed. They walk a fine line. Because if they're overtly critical of the pipeline project and don't want to and say something that they get the blame for the project not moving forward, then that doesn't look good for them either. I mean, Giesel's probably got, all of them do, right? Senator Clayman's got higher office motivations. I don't know whether Senator Wielechowski does. Senator Giesel obviously wants to move to the U.S. Senate eventually. So they've got plans for the future. They can't come right out and say it. Chris, I think you're from the interior. I haven't heard a wise question come out of Senator Kawasaki yet. I would agree with you. Kevin, thanks for participating tonight. He also says they're completely out of touch with reality. Yeah, this matters, right? Senator Myers is working class. He drives trucks when he's not down in Juneau. He's aware of what the prices of commodities and how hard it is to live in the private sector, right? He gets it. Richard, thanks for joining us tonight. Richard says voters are numerical means to the end. The conveyance for the consolidation of power. we, the people, if we want to see something change here and be positive for the pipeline, have got to get involved. This isn't one of those things where you're like, oh yeah, Ben's just saying we got to get involved and somebody will do that. I don't know what it would take to get you to pick up the phone call, to go on the online and figure out what the phone number is. Like, how bad do you have to care to figure out what Senator Giesel's phone number is? It's all at your fingertips. I mean, I can just hear it now. Somebody, I mean, maybe it's in the notes here of the messages. Ben, what's the number to call? Don't ask me. I'm being a little flippant here, right? Don't ask me. Go figure it out. Go call. Go care. Go care. I have yet to see the meeting where this is actually in the public's eye right now, Lisa. But it's the only thing that makes sense to me, is that this competing interest with alternative energy is what's behind this. Or it's just greedy politicians, Christopher. That could be true. Yeah. Nothing they're saying is helpful, Kevin. From my perspective, nothing they're saying is helpful. Now, if you're on the other side of the argument, they're making the case for why the pipeline shouldn't be built. Or if it's going to be built, tax the heck out of it, which means it's not going to get built. Like that's the problem. If you're on that side of the fence and you're looking at this and saying, oh, those greedy gas companies, those greedy oil and gas companies, they can stand to pay more in taxes, and we're gonna really stick it to them here. Well, then you better feel really comfortable, if you want the pipeline, that you've got an alternative, that you have a company lined up or some other plan lined up for somebody else to build the pipeline with the tax scheme that you have in mind. So who's going to do that? We already know that the majors stepped out. Conoco, Exxon, BP, they all stepped out because they needed a higher rate of return on a project like this. Glenfarne comes in, they're smaller, they can accept less return. You want higher taxes? You don't get a company that has a higher return threshold. You would have to have somebody that's a lower return than even Glenfarne. That's why none of this makes sense unless you look at it from the perspective that they don't want the pipeline. Yeah, Christopher, this project will produce revenue for the state and for the boroughs in the millions. And over time, the billions. It is not an apples and apples comparison if you're looking at the TAPS pipeline, the Trans-Alaska pipeline, pumping oil, and a gas pipeline. It is not an apples to apples comparison. It is different market. Gas market and oil market, completely different. Gas project and oil projects, completely different economics for the project. And you can hear them asking questions about, in previous meetings that we had, they're asking questions about, well, what did we do in the TAPS line? Okay, for general purposes, we'll have a conversation about the TAPS, but understand that the economics for oil development and oil transport are different than gas transport. So yes, the state will, and the local municipality will receive money. And this is the other thing. Giesel's throwing out this counter argument to Myers about, oh, well, you know, they're not going to be getting any money. The local municipalities aren't going to be getting any money during the construction phase. That's not what the bill that's before them. That's current law. That's current law under the project that they authored. It's disingenuous to be having that conversation. It's like, you created this project a decade ago. The legislature did, and this is the law that it was created under at the time. It's standard procedure that when you're doing construction, that there's not this large property tax during that period. That's all normal. And that's what our consultants are saying. That's what happens. For her to be saying that, that's like, well, this isn't fair. Let the municipalities negotiate with Glenfarne. State, stay the hell out of it. Set up a volumetric tax like they've got that reduces the risk of being sued over property tax conflicts in the future. Just makes sense for the project. Thank you, Craig, for contacting your senator's office. Are you serious? Craig says, I talked to my senator's office. They said he doesn't care about the gas in Alaska. He's retiring to Hawaii next year. We're in trouble. Rick, anybody that's in the private sector, in the real world, knows that a pipeline of this scale means so many things to our private economy. It is insulting. Here's what I'm feeling, right? Since I was a little boy, I have always had this emotional response, or this emotional response is probably the best way to put it, but it's just part of my DNA for bullies. Whether they're physical bullies or whether they're verbal bullies, whether they're the teacher bullying, whether they're a kid bullying, I've always had this thing that just it's like a radar that's like bing, 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 there's the bully. And then I'm like, let's go. I've always bristled at people who feel it's okay to bully others. And that is exactly what's happening on this committee. They're sitting there with a smile on their face, and they've got suits on, and they've got their status and their pins on their collar and their prestige, and they're talking down to the rest of the state. We and the government is what's most important here. We've got to have revenue for the state. They're not even thinking about the other people. They're not even thinking about it. And I'm 100% accurate in that because it's in the questions that they're asking. They're not even thinking about you or I. That's a bully. That's a bully just doing what they can because they're sitting there, they've got the power, and they have their perspective, and that's the way they're going to go with it. They are not even considering other people. If you can, Rick, if you and others can see this, but they can't, there is the problem. And it's not just a pipeline problem. It's not just a pipeline problem. It's a legislative problem. How many other conversations should be happening in the legislature with our representatives who have this kind of a mindset? Oh, I recognize what the private sector needs. I recognize what would make things better out here. How do we lower the costs of a lot of different things? Spending is taxation, and you're going to take the money from somebody somewhere. State government does not print its own money. It is spending it from somewhere that it's taking from somebody else. That means somebody else in the private sector who earned that money has to do with less somewhere. You want to say that it's people don't have to do with less because we're using it at a permanent fund earnings? Okay, well, a smaller dividend means I have less money. Every single time that you take money from the permanent fund dividend program and it doesn't get spent in mom and pop businesses, means mom and pop businesses had to do with less. It means the decisions that those people had to make are then shifted to what can government provide me because I had to do with less. Spending is taxation. It doesn't matter what kind of spending it is taxation. Somebody somewhere pays. A quarter of our budget at the federal level is debt being financed into the future. This isn't for roads and bridges and things like that, although a portion of it is. This is for everyday spending. We got our congressional delegation in Washington, D.C. that's brought back billions of dollars. Yay, let's reelect them. And I'm in favor of reelecting them, but they're making a mistake coming back to us and saying, hey, look, we were able to lower your taxes. And look at all this money that we brought into the state. Yeah, the future generation just got saddled with that debt. If we can't grow our economy and get ourselves out of debt, the current generation can't. Then the next generation just inherited the problem that we created. There doesn't seem to be any evidence that Congress is doing what's necessary to turn the ship around and reduce the deficit spending. I mean, this is another case where you're like, your actions are speaking louder than your words. You've got to get a hold of your legislators and inform them under no uncertain circumstances. They are to do whatever, they are to bend over backwards, pause everything else that needs to go on in the legislature right now, with the exception of passing a budget, and get that damn pipeline bill passed in a manner that benefits the pipeline. Everything about prosperity in the state of Alaska revolves around the cost of energy. Everything. It is the thing that needs to happen this year. I would even go so far as to say, let them fight over the budget and go into a special session over the budget. Get the pipeline bill passed. The budget will take care of itself. It's always going to take care of itself. Get this bill passed so that we can get a pipeline project moving forward. Do not be the reason that it doesn't move forward. I can't tell you what to say. If you can't see the problem here and articulate it in your own words so that the legislator or the legislator staff senses the sincerity and the conviction in you, that's what's necessary. It is the conviction of the voter contacting the representative that says, get this done. That's why I'm saying you got to care. You got to care. It is now or never. It is literally now or never. Window of opportunity. Do not delay. So, Christopher, you're not looking far enough ahead. I don't disagree with what you said. The state doesn't care about the private sector as long as they can spend our PFD any way they want. The PFD is already gone. There isn't a way to prevent the PFD from going away at this point in time. The government is going to continue to grow. It grew under a Republican governor. We added employees under a Republican governor. It's going to grow. The only way that you prevent the dividend from going away is either reducing spending or finding taxes somewhere else. You have to do one or both of those. And there's no will to do either of those right now. So the dividend is going away. I've already written it off. If we get one this year, great. Price of oil coming back up helps with us being able to have a dividend one more year. Fundamentally, though, there's nothing structurally changed for the state. Price of oil is going to go back down eventually. We will have this problem again eventually. There's nothing structurally that has changed. So the dividend's going to go away. It is going to go away. And then you'll have a tax because government's still going to grow. Might be this decade, might be next decade. That's what's going to happen because that's the structure we have. It's the system, it's the process that we've put in place. I don't know how I got off on that tangent. This is a pipeline conversation. You got to get involved with your legislator immediately. Get a hold. Go to akleg.gov. Click on the Senate or the House. Find your representative. Their phone number is listed there. Call their office and tell them under no certain circumstances that they need to move and move now. Get that pipeline bill passed. Help the pipeline project move forward. That's as simple as it needs to be. I'm doing fine. Thanks, Rick, for worrying about my health. I appreciate it. You're a good friend. It may look like my skin's red, but I don't feel like I'm blushing or my blood pressure's up. It probably is a little bit, but I'm good. I'm good. I am probably going to crash after this. Like I feel all synapses firing, trying to communicate the message here because it is that important. It is that important. Kathy Giesel and the Democrats on the committee have the power to kill this pipeline. And I think, I would love to be wrong. I think that's what they're doing. If they prove me wrong, oh well, I was wrong. Poor me, I was wrong. We got a pipeline. Okay, good. I got what I wanted in the end. If I'm right, we likely don't get another shot at this. This is about as good as it gets. I'm not looking at it just in with regard to Glenfarne. I'm looking internationally. I'm looking timing wise. All of the stars are seeming to align that this pipeline needs to be built, with the exception of our legislature. There's never been a better time. So I hope that you pass this message on. I'm going to keep this broadcast tonight short. I hope you pass this on, share it, tell other people to watch it. Hopefully my passion and getting very direct to the point here is helpful for getting this message out. We have got to enlist everybody that we can who cares about lowering the cost of their energy. Eventually, it won't be immediate, but eventually with an export facility, we would lower the cost of our energy. We have to enlist more Alaskans than we've ever done to get this message across. So share this on your social media, at your next conversation. Ask people, hey, look, if you could help out with getting this pipeline passed, would you? Then all it takes is for you to call your representative and ask them to help get this help get the pipeline bill passed, help get the pipeline constructed. 2 asks. That's it. Thanks, Lisa. Appreciate it. Dean, thanks for showing up and participating tonight. Do we need a constitutional convention? It's too late for that. The constitutional convention only happens once every 10 years. The legislature could call one. You can call it every 10 years. The voters can. And we said no last time. We've said no every time. The legislature can call a constitutional convention if they want to. That ain't going to happen. All right. Thanks, Terrell. Appreciate it. They need to hear us, and they need to hear us loud and clear until they pass this bill and get out of the way. All right, folks. Have a good night. I'm going to go sit down and take a breath. Maybe I'll go out and pet a baby cow. If you weren't here on the show last night, we finally had a heifer born, and she and mom are doing great. So that's good. All right, that's my shout out, and I hope you take the message and run with it. Have a good night.